let's be quick with this. I don't want to stay too long. Can't stand this place. Try and land on the south side. There's a staff entrance over there. Hopefully we can slip in undetected. If the Jedi Order's ego was smaller, we'd be searching a smaller building and this would take less time. Lieutenant, keep an eye on the scanner. We're gonna need to get out of here pretty quick if they show up.
Who's they?
You're on a need-to-know basis. The message we got said come to the council room. I just need to figure out where the hell the council room is. Oh, wait, there's a map here. It says there's a Jedi High Council and a Council of Reconciliation. Which one do I go to? Why is there more than one council anyway? Seems inefficient. And they're both at the top of separate towers and I don't want to climb both. You know what? I'm just gonna flip a coin. You know, I'm actually kind of surprised to see you here. Honestly, I always thought you were Sith. Cause you know, the black cloak and the fact that you could shoot lightning out of your hooves. So, you dragged us deep into Disney territory. Don't know why we can never meet somewhere convenient like Nar Shaddaa or Gerard 5. Why the hell am I here?
Those are illegal.
What do I care? Really? Yellow? That's the best color we could come up with, huh? Look, Disney's growing stronger every day, and you have to go to school to learn the ways of the Force. Are we really sure there's no other way? Okay. I think I know what I need to do.
Oh no, it's the cops!
Get the fuck outside! Run!
Those things have horns? I didn't know that! You could have offered me a way out! Well, now what? Whoa, jeez! Well, the kitty-faced stormtroopers got up here fast. Lieutenant, I think I'm gonna need a lift. I can just jump out from the top of the tower. I can fly, we keep forgetting that. Hello? Why'd you guys stop shooting? I was really starting to think that I had a... Oh, that's why. Darth Mickey. Well, this is a horrible surprise.
Our Disney empire built on top of a cartoon house will destroy all that you hold dear. Ho-ho!
Yeah, well, you can't get me to come out from behind this chair.
Our plan was to destroy the chair too, pony boy. Ho-ho!
You know what, Mickey? I'd love to stay and chat, but I got places to be. Peace out, Mickey, you corporate douchebag! Lyra, come on board! Punch it! We need to get back to our super secret base, and also figure out how the hell the Force works. Hello, my name is Hunter, the movie reviewing pony, because when it comes to cinema, humans cannot be trusted. And I might need to talk to our director, because our intros are getting really long. good. Star Wars. It was a long time ago in a galaxy far, far away, and it was so much better than it is today. And I'll tell you what, those might have been lyrics to Meatloaf's Paradise by the Dashboard Light. You make me feel old, Star Wars. And you know what? After putting way more thought than I probably should have into The Last Jedi, I've decided I'm not gonna defend you anymore. I keep giving these movies the benefit of the doubt, but at the end of the day, this isn't what the fans want, and that's what should really matter. Yes, on one hoof I still want to see that Eclipse-class Star Destroyer, but on the other hoof, you may be mucking up this 4-decade-old franchise. My opinion on the expanded universe has completely turned around as well. When I said it was all over-glorified fan fiction in my Tidbits episode, it was a fucking joke. I didn't think you were gonna retcon everything. No, instead they're doing exactly what we expected them to do, which was to milk the hell out of this franchise and make the fans' lives as fucking miserable as possible. Case in point, Solo. Solo, a Star Wars story. There's way too many S's in that title, and doesn't the logo just look better straight? As a graphic designer, I was very upset about that. And before we get too far into this, let's get one thing clear. I did not like this movie. And they weren't trying very hard to sell this from what I could tell. Trailers for this started really late. The date I have on the one playing right now comes from the official Star Wars YouTube page, and it's dated April 8th. Less than 2 months. The oldest I could actually find is from very early February, which is still bad. But it's not just that, it's the actual lack of advertisement for this movie. Disney wasn't pushing this nearly as hard as they were pushing Last Jedi, which is really bad when you look at it from a corporate standpoint, because that means that not even the distribution company has faith in the film. And that was probably justified. They're making a movie about a character that we already know, we've already met. He's been in 4 films up to this point, and we've seen how he dies. His backstory is already written pretty heavily into the lore. Alden Ehrenreich, the guy you have playing him, is known for nothing I have heard of. Seriously, where'd you dig this guy out of? And our film's director, Ron Howard, has a shaky background to say the least. The last movie he directed was Inferno, which had to be dragged out of the box office kicking and screaming. And also, you don't need to dig very deep to figure out the backstory of Han Solo. Why do we need a whole movie to explain something that we already know and something that we really don't need to know that much about? Or at least, we don't need to know that much about it compared to the grand scale of the Star Wars universe. And on top of it all, Disney's track record with this franchise speaks for itself. Longtime fans are pissed, but the younger generations are going into the movie theater and thinking that these are great. And what's super duper bad about that is that that's what Disney's trying to sell to. This movie is aimed at people who don't want to take the time to look up Han Solo's backstory and would rather just watch a film. And you know what? That's a really bad audience to aim your multi-million-dollar movie towards. So, we're 9.5 minutes into this video. Is it a good movie or a bad movie? It's a bad movie. What'd you expect? Structurally, the film works, even if it drags itself on for a while. But this movie didn't have to be made. We didn't need to put this on the big screen. We already knew the backstory of Han Solo. We don't have to make a movie about every tiny character's backstory. That's not how this works. This isn't like when you adapt a book to film. If people care enough to know the backstory of someone, they're just gonna look it up. That's probably why it's tanking at the box office. But I'll be fair, because Disney decided not to kill off a major character that we know and love for once. In fact, they killed someone that we really, really hated. Or at least I hated them. Anyway, let's get started with this. The effects are great, even though there's one effect that drives me absolutely insane throughout this whole movie. But everything else works just fine. The places that this movie is shot at are actually pretty damn beautiful, but that's a double-edged sword that I'll be getting into later. All the performances in this movie were pretty good, so nothing to complain about there. Except maybe the lead, but that's just because he's not Harrison Ford. I really don't think we have the case of another breakout star here like we had with Chris Pratt. There can't be too hard on him, he can act. And so can pretty much everyone else in this movie. And once again, they're building actual sets for a Star Wars movie. None of that just prop the characters in front of a green screen and call it good like George Lucas was doing. And as much as I want George Lucas back at the helm, I must admit that's a really unhealthy film environment. It's better for the actors and the film as a whole if there's an actual set being built that we can actually see and look at and say, oh, there's no way that's CG. But again, that's a double-edged sword. You know, honestly, it would probably just be easier for you to go watch our Last Jedi review, because whatever I found good with that movie, I found good with this movie. And you know, it's a pretty bad day when that's all the good that I can find in a movie, which means that we're going into the bad. Let's start with the biggest thing. This movie doesn't need to exist. We know all of this stuff. The backstory of a main character like Han Solo isn't shrouded in mystery, especially since in the Star Wars universe, everything is written down. Even the Wikipedia page for someone as minor as Wedge Antilles, a character with barely any screen time in the films, is 1.5 miles long. But it leads to one of the biggest problems in this movie, and that problem is we know what's going to happen. Thus, it's next to impossible to develop any suspension of disbelief with this movie. We know that our main characters are gonna get out, we know he's gonna end up with the Millennium Falcon, and we know that he's not gonna end up with the girl in this movie. And we also know that Chewbacca finds his family eventually. Because we see them in a later film and they're all hanging out in some condo on Kashyyyk. Well, then again, the Star Wars Holiday Special is ambiguously canon, so I'll give you that one. Mostly because it's hard to respect a movie where 90% of the characters are only going, "Ugh." But we know these characters are gonna make it through this movie, and we know the Millennium Falcon is gonna make the Kessel Run in less than 12 parsecs, even if most of us don't know what a parsec is. There's no mystery, there's no suspense, because we know they're gonna live. You can cram as many expendable side characters into your movie as you want, but we know our main character, which is what most of us only care about, are going to survive. Now, I probably shouldn't touch this next topic. In fact, I know I shouldn't. But Kathleen Kennedy, the current president of Lucasfilms, has pushed me over the edge. Which means I have to go into this next topic: social justice warrior droids. L337, or LEET, is literally, they're not even trying to hide this anymore, a social justice warrior droid. I said in my Last Jedi review that I don't want to touch this topic, but now you're shoving it in our face, so I have to. And that's the thing, you're shoving it in our face now. There are articles online that are saying this is the reason that the movie bombed. Now, I wouldn't go that far, believe me, I wouldn't. But I won't say it wasn't a contributing factor. I'm all for equal rights. I have never said that I'm not for equal rights. But when it starts affecting my job, and it's in the movies that I review, that's when I get mad. Why does it need to be shoved in the faces of the public when they can't really do anything about it? Keep this social justice warrior crap out of our movies and go back to ranting about big companies and maintain yourselves in what you have left of dignity. I'm gonna keep going, but this is a problem. Now, I mentioned that there was one major special effect that ruins this movie for me, and that's for like 80% of it, it's got this weird blue glow to it. It doesn't take that long to figure out that this movie has a weird obsession with the color blue, but it oversaturates itself at points to the point where it's hard to figure out what the hell is going on. One planet they're on, the whole damn planet was blue, and it was an important part of the story because it was where we met Chewbacca. You can also chalk it up to bad lighting, because some of the points of this movie are just too dark, some might be a little bit too bright. Sometimes there's too much going on the screen at one time to figure out what the hell is going on, which is mostly some of the flying sections, but that's still a problem, because flying is a major part of Star Wars. And the color scheme for this movie gets really boring after a while. Grays and browns. And then for certain sections, there's just blue everywhere. It's clearly trying to portray a darker, grittier side of the Star Wars universe, and it's not working. And the antagonist in this movie sucks. His motives are vague. He feels way too underpowered. He already looks like an edgy piece of shit, which is filling a stereotypical Disney trope where the villain already looks evil, so it's easier to accept him as the villain later. And he doesn't get nearly enough screen time to paint him as anything but a villain. He feels like a cardboard cutout of an antagonist, and he just doesn't work. There's also way too many expendable characters in this movie. It feels like they tried to saturate the movie with those, try to get us to care about them, and then kill off a bunch of them. There's a pilot who gets shot in the back and then dies slowly. There's a woman that they make a great big deal about when she dies, and then she dies, even though she barely got enough screen time for us to care about her. There's someone who follows us through the whole damn movie and then betrays Han for no good, adequately explained reason. And Han shoots him, so he's dead. And I know this one doesn't count, but Darth Maul makes an appearance on like a hologram sort of thing. And he's died like twice in Star Wars so far. So, I'm gonna say that one counts too. And the previously mentioned social justice warrior droid, and I do mean this, it's just blatantly a social justice warrior. She gets gunned down and everyone's all sad about it, so they upload her brain into the Navi computer of the Millennium Falcon, which is kind of fucked up, because that implies that that droid's brain has now been infested inside of the Millennium Falcon for all of the movies that it has appeared in. It hasn't said anything, but it's there, which is really creepy. And I'm gonna go back to something I probably should have addressed when I said it. Yeah, Darth Maul is in this movie. Very, very vaguely, and I don't know why he's there. They killed him all the way back in Phantom Menace, and I'm 86% sure he also died in the Clone Wars TV series, which Disney is considering canon. How many times are we gonna keep bringing Darth Maul back from the dead? Just let him die! And probably the biggest mistake in this movie was putting the love interest in there. Because we know that these two aren't gonna get together. We know Han Solo and Princess Leia are gonna end up together in the end and have a kid that ends up killing his dad. You can't unwrite that, and you can't expect any suspension of disbelief. So what's the goddamn point of her being here? It'd be fine if they wrote her off relatively early in the movie, but they didn't. She sticks around until the end. They keep egging on about how these two are in love, but we already know. And that's another thing. We already know, which means that this movie is pretty much unable to hold up to its counterpart, Rogue One. Rogue One, we knew they were gonna get the Death Star plans, but Rogue One was also filling an enormous plot hole as to how the greatest weapon ever created in the galaxy could have such an exploitable weakness. Which I don't think was actually written down at that point, so it actually served a purpose. This, everything was already written down, so it doesn't really have a place in the universe. And it's time for that double-edged sword I kept going on about. You're telling me we could go anywhere in the wide, wide galaxy of Star Wars, and we keep going to desert planets, ice moons, and barren wastelands with nothing in them. This isn't helping anything. In fact, it's making the Star Wars universe feel really, really empty. And it's not just this movie. It's Jakku. It's that salt planet. It's that resort planet where we only see the resort and nothing else. It's the planet where we met Maz. It's the planet with the resistance base on it. Notice how none of these are memorable. I'm sure these planets have names, but we can't be bothered to remember them because there's nothing there. There's no reason to get invested in these crazy locations because none of them are crazy. We visit Corellia in this movie, one of the most talked about planets in the Star Wars universe, and all we get to see are the back alleys and slums. Why does everything Disney does with the Star Wars franchise have to take them to the ass end of the galaxy? And others just get blown up like in Rogue One. And this is a minor thing, but I'm gonna nitpick. Why did we have to redesign the Millennium Falcon? By the end of the movie, we're back to what we remember, but why did we have to redesign it in the first place? I refuse to believe that anyone is this obsessed with selling toys that they would redesign something as memorable as the Millennium Falcon. And I see what you have on the shelves, Lego. Don't think I don't. Hey, geez, this is a huge list of crap that I have wrong with this movie. And it's a Star Wars movie. I didn't think I would have to complain this much. Going off of my rating system where 5 is a perfectly average movie, my final verdict on this one, 4.8. Actually below average. This movie just doesn't need to exist. And I think that's the biggest problem with this movie, is that it didn't need to be made. It doesn't fit in with the Star Wars universe. We already knew the backstory. It's just something that didn't need to be converted into a film. In fact, it felt better off of the big screen, because then it felt like a legend that everyone would talk about. And thankfully, it looks like LucasArts is gonna get what's coming to them, because this movie is tanking at the box office. So hopefully they'll learn from this. At the same time, maybe they'll learn to keep the social justice warrior crap out of our face. Sure, not having equal rights sucks, but what do you expect us to do about it? We're just here to watch a movie. And that's probably the best thing I can say about this, is that it does resemble a movie. An unenjoyable and unneeded movie. My advice, skip this one. Even if you're a hardcore fan of Star Wars, skip it. It does not hold up to other movies that are out right now. If this track record of Star Wars reviews is anything to indicate, is that they need to turn their ass around real quick. My name is Hunter, and I'm Captain of the Aluminum Falcon. May the Force be with you.